Welcome back. I'm Andrew, your crypto guy on the internet. I've been away working on market cipher stuff, but I keep getting DMs and messages of people freaking out over the last Bitcoin plunge. And it's because they're not aware of what's going on in the macro story. So it's not just Bitcoin. The story goes much wider than that. And on this channel, we don't like surprises. It's important to know what's going on in the big markets, what's happening globally, that will affect price action, what the outlook is. And often the people on TV are a month behind, so I'm just going to give it to you straight what's really happening out there. So we have two major things to consider. I'm just going to go over all these topics for you. So we had this bullish action. Remember, everybody was going up, everything's going to be okay, inflation is over, Bidenomics is working, right, all this. But it was painted rust. All of that was based on a wall of hope. And we had four big things that was keeping the wall of hope alive. And one by one, all of those narratives fell apart when faced with reality. So first we had the idea of a Fed pivot. They've been raising rates rapidly, faster than any other time in my life. And the idea was inflation is coming down, the Fed is going to pause, and everything's going to come back a nice soft landing. Unfortunately, inflation is sticky, very sticky. And this last reading, inflation was going up a little bit, wasn't going down anymore. And although they've been fudging the numbers to make them look better than they actually are, like the last minute's report showed that energy was coming down, but we know it's not. If you pay an electric bill, if you have to put gasoline in your car, you can see that the prices are not coming down. Just this morning, I saw gas was up 50 cents versus 2 weeks ago. That's quite a bit. And I also go to grocery stores, right? I eat food. And I saw 2 organic chicken breasts that under Trump was like $9-10 at the nicest place. And now it's $19 for the same 2 chicken breasts. Now, if inflation's coming down and everything's cool, I would expect not $20 for chicken. So we know in reality, just as brain-dead consumers, that things are not as good as our administration is telling us. And the Fed can't really keep lying. So the problem is we keep printing money to send to faraway wars and corrupt political deals while the people here at home in the States continue to suffer. So the Fed pivot, that's no longer going to save us. They might have to do another rate increase by the end of the year, and it's not like they're going to start cutting rates right away either. It looks like they're going to have to wait deep into 2024 before they start cutting rates. And you feel the initial sting of high rates, like banks closing. People can't get a house, they can't get a car, they can't apply for a loan for a business, and that stagnates the economy. And if you already have a business, it's much harder to get liquidity. It's harder to get a loan. And so you can't expand your business or hire more people. There's that initial sting, and then there's like a dull throbbing pain that lasts for a long time. So BlackRock, for instance, they come out and they're going, yeah, it's going to be sticky for a while. Probably another year we're going to be feeling the pain of these increased rates. And there's really no way around it. And so if you are struggling now, get used to it. Make cuts where you can. Okay? So the Fed pivot didn't save us. But what about AI? AI. Everybody's got AI. And it's going to save the economy because it's different now. Now, I know AI had a short burst of interest from the mainstream, and that technology is here to stay, sure. But to rely on something that needs growth stuff, tech stuff, that works in a bull market. We're not in a bull market. No matter what Jim Cramer says, we are in a recession. That's the opposite of a bull market. And so to rely on tech to save the economy magically, that's goofy. That's not going to work. So I still have some AI related stuff because I'm getting in early. We're speculating a little bit on things like render token, maybe some Tesla and some Nvidia, right? That's all fun, but party's over here pretty soon, and you're seeing a retracement in a lot of those assets. So AI is not going to save anybody. It's cool, but don't expect it to save the economy. The third thing on the wall of hope was that China is reopening and it's going to be big spending. All this new liquidity is going to jump into the market and save the global market, right? Well, China reopened after all of its COVID lockdowns, and everybody's still poor and nobody's spending any money because they don't have any money. So that completely flopped. And now Evergrande, they applied for Chapter 15 bankruptcy. And that was a major catalyst in the fall of Bitcoin here. Because that's a harbinger of doom. If China's biggest developer is out of money, that's not a good sign. And so I think China, the government is going to have to do something over there. They're going to have to come up with some kind of stimulus. But they've been raising their rates too, because they're trying to combat inflation. But now they're almost forced to print money to try to save themselves. But really all that does is kick the can down the road and make the problem bigger later. And before we get to the ETFs, we also had Japan. Japan was really the only major country that was not raising interest rates. So they were providing liquidity to the market when everybody else was tightening their purse. So they were kind of keeping the party rolling to a certain extent. But Japan also came out and went, yeah, we're gonna have to start raising rates as well. So, sorry. So the last party animal is cleaning himself up too, and it's over. Not good. And then the last thing we had was the Bitcoin ETF story. Now the Bitcoin ETFs are not off the table. All the big boys applied. But the SEC is delaying them. So the first two major ones have been delayed, and they'll likely kick it back to the maximum number of days they can delay these things. First and second quarter of 2024 is when I think we'll get an ETF, a spot Bitcoin ETF approved in the United States. Now, we did get one approved in Europe, and I think they have one in Canada or Australia or somewhere else, but those places don't matter. Because most of the money in crypto is from the United States. So once the US approves one, then it's party time. But for now, they're being kicked down the road. They're being delayed. And that deflated everybody. And that's kind of falling into BlackRock's plan. Because if they launch an ETF now, nobody has any money. And so the way you kick off a big bull run, right? I'll give you an example. So the big boys get the movement started, okay? Then retail hears about it about halfway through, and then they jump in. They throw all their money in. And then right near the peak is when the initial whales that started this cash out and take the money from retail, people like you and me. So they start a FOMO rally. All the little people jump in, and then they cut them all out. They cut the knees right out from all these little people. And so BlackRock's trying to do that now, is what I would argue. They're starting a FOMO dump, and they're trying to shake out as many little people as they can. Because you can't really produce Bitcoin. There's 2 million left, and they're really hard to make. So there are still some people out there, like you and me, that are not giving up their Bitcoin. And a lot of these people are millennials, and they have serious pressure on their backs, and some of them are going to let go of their Bitcoin. Look, I need to pay rent. It's too much. Chicken's $20, gas is $6. I need some cash. Bitcoin's my only strong asset, but I need liquidity. I have to eat. And BlackRock's going, good, good, good. But you and I are not going to sell our Bitcoin because we're not suckers. We'll figure out a way around it, okay? So they're starting some FOMO, and people are already within one day. It's going to 12K! Is it, though? Let's think about that. We're right back in the range we were before. Okay, we have a major range here that was established as resistance and then flipped into support. That's at about 25.2, 25.3, depending on the exchange you're looking at. So we're bouncing around in this range again. And if you look at closer time frames, Bitcoin's already kind of finding a local bottom. Can it go down further? Yeah, it can. But, you know, money flow's starting to move up a little bit on the 1 hour. It's not going straight down anymore. It's fighting back, is what I'm saying. So I'm looking at, I have some little buys placed at 25.3, and then another set of buys on the next major level of support, which is a ton of volume in the low 20s, like 22, 21, 20,000 is a thick wall. That because we were hanging around there for so long that it's now a big wall of volume that has to be broken through. So I don't know how you generate enough fear to break through 20,000 again. That's going to be tough. But even if that does happen, that's a great DCA opportunity for us. So yeah, I was part of the group that I was looking at this pattern, and I was looking at the wall of hope, and I go, okay, these first three are bullshit. But the Bitcoin ETFs, that's a big deal. And with XRP mostly winning their case, now the SEC is still fighting them for some reason, but I was going, the internet, everybody says that we're going to 50K. I'm like, 35 is reasonable, because this is wide open right here. If you keep knocking on this wall and break through, we should go right up to that 35, maybe even 40. That was a reasonable thing to come up with a month ago. But then we looked at the CPI data, we looked at the Fed minutes, and all this stuff from China and Japan and BlackRock and student loans coming back and credit card debt, the highest it's ever been. And I'm going, okay, I don't know where this liquidity is going to come from. So it actually broke down to the downside after this nice fat wedge we've been building. And that's where we're at now. So within one day, it's the same thing going the opposite way. Like, I remember when we jumped up to here, people were saying we're going to 50K tomorrow. And now it's the opposite. We fall right back down to the same range we've been in, and they go, we're going to 12,000. Gareth Soloway says, kill your wife. It's over. And I'm like, look, okay, relax. Relax. A few months ago, we were praying for 26,000, and here we are. Have some perspective. So, the wall of hope did not play out. We were 0 for 3 on these, and then the Bitcoin ETFs got delayed, so we struck out. And now we have the wall of worry. These are problems that we're all facing right now. And regarding all of this crap, Bitcoin's doing great, all right? So we have sticky inflation, stagflation, and a flatlined GDP, which BlackRock just talked about recently. We already knew that was coming. Bidenomics is bogus. Everything's falling apart. And they're giving us fake numbers. All you have to do, as a normal person, is try to get gasoline or food, and you can see shit is not getting cheaper. And it's going to stick around for a while. The Russia-Ukraine war, there's no end in sight. We're still sending billions there constantly. And yet Maui burns under dubious circumstances, and he's given $700 to each ruined family, which turns out to be around $2 million. Now, we spend $2 million on lunch in Ukraine every day, and you're telling me that's all Maui gets is, here's $2 million. We're really struggling to come up with some cash, and then you go give Zelensky another $10 billion. It does not make any sense. So then we have China and Taiwan invasion over semiconductors, and Vivek Ramaswamy had a great response to this that was misinterpreted. So China's main reason for invading Taiwan, which they haven't yet, but it looks like they're going to because they know the United States is weak right now. The main reason why you would aggressively take over Taiwan is because they are a huge supplier of semiconductors, computer chips, and the United States needs those because we don't produce enough of them here, locally. And so Vivek goes, all we have to do is delay that conflict a little longer and start building semiconductors here in the United States. Because once the US has plenty of its own semiconductor producers, we no longer need Taiwan. And then China doesn't have to invade them anymore. Because the main reason why you take Taiwan is to weaken the United States. And so if Taiwan is no longer a factor to the US, then China just goes, oh, all right, we'll just keep dealing with Taiwan the way we have been. And people saw Vivek's response like that and went, oh, well, he's weak on China. He's afraid of China. And I'm like, no, what he just said was the most reasonable approach. Build your own semiconductors, and then you don't need Taiwan, and then China then no longer needs to invade them. That's how you avoid the war. All right, but we're not doing any of that right now because Vivek's not in charge. Joe Biden, well, technically Joe Biden isn't in charge of anything, but the people around him don't see that. So we had our Inflation Reduction Act, which was a beautiful marketing approach, but it's not reducing inflation at all. So the idea is you have the CHIPS Act, so we generate more of our own chips, and I like that, but there's no oversight into where that money actually goes. So a lot of that money was just invested overseas anyhow, and it seemed like a giant waste of taxpayer dollars, in my opinion. Then you have consumer credit card debt, and this was what really is going to hurt us. So, it's over $1 trillion. And that's because the price of everything is way too high. And so, a lot of these people are in credit card debt at 22% interest, and that just keeps rolling up exponentially. So no one has any money to invest anything, and so the market starts to flop. And Bitcoin is one of the strongest holdouts, but all the party boys, all the altcoins and fund stocks, mid-caps, all that stuff is tanking. It's all hurting. Nobody can do squat. Even cool stuff like Surge is going under. Tesla reached a local peak, and now we're riding this thing back. What are we at now? Like 215? It's coming back a little bit. But this is the strongest performing stock. Everybody else is really hurting. And that's because they're whatever people have, they're cashing out to try to eat. And then student loan payments, a double whammy. The same people that are in credit card debt, oh, guess what? Next month, you're going to have to start paying $500 a month for your student loans for your degree that's not even paying you a decent salary. So these people are triple whammied right now. Oh, also, the government has aliens and alien crafts, but we don't know who's on the Epstein client list. But the jobs report is really good, guys. Yeah, that's because everybody has 2 or 3 jobs and still can't put food on the table. On top of that, you have the housing crisis. No one can afford to buy a house. And as a result, birth rates and marriage rates are declining. So this, within 1 or 2 generations, within just a couple years, everything is unraveling quickly. And then the border's wide open, so we're letting people in from everywhere. They're not Mexicans. In fact, a lot of them are not from Mexico at all. They come up through Mexico, but they're from all over the place. You got China, you got Russians, you got people from Poland and Nicaragua and Chad, or the Congo. Wherever the hell they want to come from, they just show up. And it's all through the Mexican drug cartels. The cartels run the border, not us. And so you have American Border Patrol people just beside themselves, crying, leaving, quitting the job because they're not doing anything. They're just letting people in. And they're going, this is not working. And so our social safety nets are completely overwhelmed. We're trying to ship these people off into sanctuary cities, but they're all closing the doors. New York, Chicago, LA, they're going, what are we supposed to do? We're running out of room here. I got no money, and there's homeless people all over the place. So we dumped $20 billion to fight the homeless problem, but it's bigger than it's ever been. So, what are we going to do about that? And then number 8, we have political strife and corruption. So there's a new indictment against Trump every 15 minutes, and all it's really doing is helping him in the polls. So the idea is that if you keep Trump tied up in court cases, bogus or not, it doesn't matter. The point is that you get him to spend as much time and money in courts as possible, so he's not spending it going on the road running an election campaign. So that's where we're at, and overall there's just not much confidence in the United States. And so we had our credit rating down a peg because the rest of the world sees the truth. Yeah, Janet Yellen can say that everything's fine, and Jamie Dimon can say that everything's cool, but the big banks are about to get downgraded too, because all their customers are overwhelmed with debt. No one's depositing any money anymore, and so the banks have really no money to play with. And then there's no reserve either. At least it used to be a fractional reserve system. Now they don't actually have any cash on hand. So what are we supposed to do? Okay, so the stock market is going to pull back as growth stagnates over the next year. We already knew that. So whatever Jim Cramer says, no, he's wrong. What's truly happening is a slow bleed, and it's inevitable. There's really no way out that's comfortable. We will get out of this, but it's not going to be comfortable. And then the big boys are looking to shake out the last of the holders. I mentioned this earlier. Don't sell your Bitcoin. Okay? Not yet. Not for a while. Not until the peak of the next bull market, and I'll be making a video during those times. I'm sniffing around 2025 still. 2024 is an in-between year. We get a new president, and hopefully it's a Republican. Not that you have to be a Republican, but they tend to be pro-crypto compared to Democrats, at least in their current form, other than RFK Jr. You're looking to accumulate more Bitcoin. So when everyone else is terrified and we go down to this level, buy a little more. Not financial advice, but I would not be selling here. That's the stupidest thing you can do. Look for opportunities to buy a little more. Now, these altcoins, you know how it is. If Bitcoin goes down, they go down even worse. And altcoins are further out on the risk curve. They're the fun of the fun techie stuff. The super outlandish Web 3.0, new invention stuff. When people are hungry, they're not thinking about Web 3.0 and the advancement of space tech. They're just trying to survive. And so stuff like AI and layer 0 protocols for crypto, that kind of falls by the wayside. No one's looking at that right now. They're still in development, and the strongest companies will survive because when the bull market comes back, those guys will be ready. And they're going to make a huge, huge set of gains, 100x's and stuff. The challenge is picking the right ones, and we never really know which altcoins are going to make it or not. So it's kind of a gamble in a way where you want to research these companies and see who you like best. I really like these people. I like what they're developing, and I have faith in them. Knowing that you're taking a risk. A tech company, a growth-based company in today's day and age is risky because, as you know, there's no growth. It's only going down or sideways, and it's going to be like that for a while. So in the crypto space, Bitcoin is your safest choice because Citadel, BlackRock, and Fidelity, they're all fighting over it. But they don't want to make too big a stink about Bitcoin because you and I will start buying it again and raise the price. So they want everyone to be terrified so they can shake out the weak hands and accumulate their own big bags because they know, BlackRock knows, that one of these ETFs, these spot Bitcoin ETFs, will be approved next year at some point. I think first or second quarter, because in April is when the Bitcoin halving kicks in, which cuts the Bitcoin production in half and makes it even more difficult to get, right? So the price generally begins going up from there. When the halving starts, that's when the bull run for Bitcoin begins. Now, it's not overnight, it's suddenly worth 100K, but it starts going up and to the right again. And not in a fake way that's based on a wall of hope that falls apart. It is mathematically a reality after the halving event. Hold on to your Bitcoin, look for opportunities to dollar cost average in more. Meaning if you see a cheap price, buy a little bit at a time. And so I'll give you an example. When Bitcoin was up at 60-something, 68,000, I was like, it's too high. And then it started to fall. And I bought a little right around here somewhere, 50K. Now, if that's the only time I bought, I'm still in the red, big time. So instead, I dollar cost averaged. I was like, okay, I bought a little too high, but I didn't know where the bottom was. It looked good at the time, right? And so as it goes down every 5,000 or 5,000, any major support level that gets broken, I buy a little more, and I buy a little more, and the price goes down, and then I bought a lot when it was down here somewhere. I'm going, come on. How can it go much lower than that? It's crazy. And it brought my average buy price from 48,000 down to about 20,000. And so right now, I'm actually still in the green at 26, but I'm not going to sell my Bitcoin. Not until the peak of the next bull market, at least, if ever. These altcoins, I buy and sell and trade them every day. They don't really matter to me. Ethereum, I hold on to Ethereum as well because it's so similar to Bitcoin. It has long-lasting power. Things are being built on it. They are not a security. Everything's cool, or at least for now. Bitcoin number 1, Ethereum number 2, and then all these altcoins, they're just risks. And you can make money or lose money quickly with a risk. So the bottom line is, yeah, the shit's hitting the fan. I don't care what Janet Yellen or Jerome Powell or what they say on the news, but every day they are subject to the trends and fears and emotions, and you and I are not, because we're informed. So when I see a drop like this, I just see an opportunity. I don't panic. All right? What are you panicking for? We're right where we were. Zoom out, man. Look at the whole story. So we've been through all this already since the beginning, all this crazy stuff, And then the last couple days was this little thing. You want me to give up and leave from that? Come on. It's like, great, if it keeps going down, I'll buy more. And if it goes to 12K, that's because one of these major, like World War III is currently happening, nukes are dropping, we're at 12K. I'm still going to buy Bitcoin then. Because at that point, the dollar is doomed and the BRICS nations won. So keep a cool head. You know that the hope has failed and the worry remains, and August, September are generally kind of lousy anyway. But yeah, there's no getting around stuff like this. The millennials are really in some big trouble, and millennials are largely the people who own cryptocurrency. So I think the people who already had weak hands have sold out and left a while ago. But for those of us who are still around, keep a cool head, be smart with your money, and wait it out. Look for someone else screaming and take their stuff half price.